Reading from my book, Living in the Divine Will by David Subnosky on Amazon.com. Page 198. The Promised Time. Our time is the promised time. The wheat and the chaff are being separated. We all need to get in the ark of Our Lady, which is our refuge for this time. We are in the birth pangs of major cataclysmic events that will fall on the good and the bad, and that will destroy most of humanity and most of this civilization. The destruction of this generation and of this civilization has started. It is man rising up against man, nature rising up against man, and God's chastisements of fire from heaven. If you are in the refuge of the divine will, and you die, you will go to the highest places in heaven. And the survivors who live in the divine will live in the era of peace upon the earth, the millennium of peace promised in the Bible. What is this gift of the divine will? This is the kingdom of God descending from heaven to earth in us. It is a divine possession, meaning God is coming down from heaven and living in us. This has never been available to fallen human beings, and is God taking over control of our life and raising us up to a higher divine life. How do we receive this gift? You simply give the consent of your will to allowing God to take over running your life and to sanctify you, to make you holy. Once you know what this gift is, you must desire it, even willing to sacrifice your life. This is an all or none covenant. And Jesus takes you at your word and takes over control of your life. Jesus explained to Luisa how God lives in us. God's will connects our human will back up to God's divine will, and God pours his divine will into our soul, and God lives in our soul and in our acts. As St. Augustine teaches, that God will not save us without our cooperation. We pray, Jesus, you do it in me. Pray in my praying, think in my thinking, walk in my walking, etc. This is in every act that we do. Once you enter into the gift of living in the divine will, in every act you receive all the graces of all the sacraments ever given and more. You receive perfect union with God. The gift of the divine will is God giving himself completely to us, and we give ourselves completely to God. Be careful with this gift. When you enter into the divine will, you enter into the sinless ark of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the sinless ark of the covenant. We are being lifted up above the mud and evil of the world, and we will be set down in the era of peace upon the earth on the seventh day, the day of rest. This is also the third day. A day to God, Jesus explained to Peter, a day to God is 1,000 years. This is the third day after the resurrection and the seventh day of the creation of man in the Garden of Eden, as Jesus explains. King David was bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, and you remember what happened to Uzzah in the Old Testament when he unworthily touched the Ark of the Covenant that foretold the sinless Ark of the Covenant, which is the Blessed Virgin Mary. Uzzah was struck dead for unworthily touching the ark. Now, you already know enough to say yes to this gift. You just sign over your life, all of your life over to Jesus, and he takes over complete control of your life, and you live a new and higher divine existence. You give your yes, and you keep learning and signing yourself over to living in this gift. But be aware, God will sanctify you and strip you of all attachments in the human will. This involves suffering, but it's Jesus suffering in you, and we make a return of love to the Father in all of our acts. We have a new and higher divine life. We just have to keep learning about the gift of the divine will, as we keep reading the book of heaven, and we sign ourselves over to it, and we will enter in deeper and deeper on earth and then live in the divine will in heaven for eternity. The knowledge of the divine will is the army of light. And us doing our acts in the divine will are the ammunition of light. You have to read and study the book of heaven and call Jesus into doing your acts in the divine will. And as you call Jesus into doing your acts in the divine will is pulsed into you from the center of the Trinity, and this power goes out to all humans, past, present, and future, into all of heaven and purgatory, and then we give a return of love to the Father with his own divine love. This is how the human will is defeated and how the divine will triumphs. And this is the triumph of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We become one with their hearts. Do not wait for the era of peace to come, because the era of peace is being formed in those who are taking up living in the gift of the divine will. This is the quickest, fastest, and most effective way to become holy, but it is still a process. And you must be disposed to making the greatest of sacrifices unto death. God bless you.